Welcome to the Screen Time Continuum. My name is Keelan. I'm here with the fellas, as always, as usual. Nick, how you doing, brother? How you feeling?
Hey man, I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm magically inclined to get through this episode, and
That's
here we are to do
wonderful.
it.
That's wonderful.
Yes,
I am
indeed.
not magical tonight, just so you guys know.
Yes, indeed. And Mike, how you feeling, brother?
You know, I was feeling down in the dumps until I saw this movie, and then I realized it could always be worse.
It can always be worse, even when you think you're at your lowest. And I do think this movie proves that point thoroughly. For the record, all of those who are in attendance with this episode, night, noon, morning, evening, whenever it is you're tuning in, we appreciate you. We're here to give you a review of the American Society of Magical Negroes, magical black people, magically oppressed, however you want to call it, magically depressed at some point in this movie, but we'll get to all of that. Thank you guys for coming, showing up, showing out. And I think it's just time for us to get into what this movie is, where it comes from, where it's at, how you can see it, and who's in it. So this movie, again called The American Society of Magical Negroes, is currently showing on Peacock. I'm sure you can see it on a lot of your other streaming platforms, but if you already have a Peacock membership or subscription, as they call it nowadays, then you can definitely tune into it right here, right now, with no extra charge. It runs for an hour and 45 minutes. It is considered a comedy fantasy rated PG-13, but I personally don't think you should let your 14 and 15-year-olds watch this because they're going to have too many questions. Um, this isn't the society we live in anymore, but they definitely tried. And it came out, excuse me, this year, 2024. Now, the issue I have with that really quick before we get too deep into this, they said it came out March 15th of 2024, but I swear this movie came out in December of last year, but I could be wrong.
I think
I
that's
think
when the
you're wrong.
promos. I think that's when the promos started for it because
Yeah.
when the trailer came out, it was a big deal.
It was a huge deal. And you know what, Nick, that might be a good point because there were a couple of different trailers, I feel like. I feel like even the trailer that they show on Peacock right now was a brand new trailer compared to all the ones I had seen beforehand. So that makes a good point. For the record, anyone who's seen all of those different trailers that I believe I've seen, not much of the movie is in the trailers, even though it feels like the entire movie is in the trailers. This movie was directed by Kobe Libby. I actually do not know how to pronounce that, and I apologize if I massacred it. It is edited by Brian Oates. Why am I telling you who edited it? Because that is what they give us here, director and editor. Usually we get screenwriters and who did the music, but nope, they gave us the editor on the front page of Google. The production company, the production company is Sight Unseen. It is distributed by Focus Features and Universal Pictures, so Comcast and Universal. With that being said, the cast is Justice Smith, David Allen Greer, Nicole Byer, Anlee Bogan, Rupert Friend, Michaela Watkins, Aisha Hines, and I'm just gonna find the next character that is the main character, Drew Tarver. There's a couple of other names in here, but you really only see about four characters consistently through this movie, and three others make a cameo. That's not a bad thing, but here we are. It's what it is. Now, on Peacock, the plot given for this movie says a young man is recruited into a society of magical black people. That is the front and end of it. And also, on Peacock, it is rated a 63. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's rated a 26. But what's weird is, okay, before I get into it, I have to say this, guys. Something's wrong with the rating system.
Oh
Google
yeah.
says Peacock rated at 26%, but on Peacock itself, I forgot what's the rating with the popcorn? I forget the name right now.
Yeah, so it says that 63% rated it fresh, or no, popcorn. I don't know what the that's the sorry, that's the 63% is the audience score.
The audience score, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the
And
people
the
who
other one
actually
is the
sat in.
critic score. Yeah.
Right. So I'm gonna assume that they did a initial viewing of this before it actually hit theaters, or they did one of those special viewings. I could see this being one of those movies that you get invited to see before it actually hits theaters. Somebody's walking around outside of a burger stand or in your favorite eatery, and they're like, "Hey, you want to go see a movie?" I could actually see this being one of those movies. But IMDb also gives it a 3.1. But in a nutshell, they say that this movie is magical, whimsical, and intriguing. Whimsical is the only one that I agree with. But Google has a synopsis as well. Google says a young man gets recruited into a society of magical black people who dedicate their lives to making white people's lives easier. Although initially enamored with his new powers, he begins to question the value of using supernatural means to do the very thing he's felt obligated to do his entire life. I like that a lot better than what they have on Peacock. They should have just took up the screen space and gave us that. But now that I've given you guys this long-winded, drawn out, very friendly and very digestible introduction to this movie, as they wanted me to do, that's the whole point of this movie, right? Let's get into some first impressions, fellas. Who wants to go first? Mike, how you
You
feel
know
about
it's
this?
not
I
me.
mean, you chose it.
All right, I'll go first. I didn't really like it all that much. Um, I didn't hate it, but I just really didn't like it either. I think they were trying to create that 90s atmosphere with racial tensions where it was I don't know, man. They it didn't work. It was a like we were talking about. It was a terrible use of I'm sorry, David Allen Greer, because he's absolutely hilarious. But in this movie, he was basically just like a mentor, and I thought it was supposed to be a romantic comedy. I didn't find it very whimsical. I didn't even really think that there was a whole lot of magic actually in it. It was more like subtle suggestive stuff, and then you had like every once in a while there was some kind of big magical reveal like the teleportation or uh
That's
uh
pretty much all there
the
is.
Teleportation.
chick
That's
floating.
pretty
Yeah.
much all that happened.
Huh?
Oh yeah, the floating of. Never mind. I'm not gonna say that out loud.
Yeah, the float,
Mm.
the chick who was floating a little bit. So it wasn't like there was a whole lot of use of actual magic. It's not like we were watching the Black Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Which is
Yeah,
kind of what I
you
really
can't say
was
that.
expecting. You know,
You can't say that.
basically what? Well, I can't say that.
No, because I'm supposed to say that in my initial thoughts about this movie.
Oh, my bad. Well, I mean, because what they did was they took a black person's apprehensions around white people in white spaces, and they made their magic ability to be able to maneuver and function in that. And that's kind of stupid. That's not a power, but that's just my
I
impression.
beg to disagree. I mean, I beg to differ, but hey, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
All right. Well, to piggyback off of what Mike said, no, I think Mike's first impressions actually are pretty spot on. But I do want to add some things to it. Me personally, yeah, I did expect Black Harry Potter as well. I literally remember seeing this in the theaters, and I thought to myself, "Oh snap, we gonna get a Black Harry Potter in here." And then I saw David Allen Greer, and I was like, David Allen Greer. As you guys can see from Mike and I's disability to say his entire name, we clearly call him Dag in the community, right?
Yeah,
But but no, absolutely. I expected this to be a little more magical. I expected it to be a little more fantastical. Like, what is going on with the lack of magic in a movie that literally calls us magical Negroes? If you're gonna
right.
go that far in the title, you gotta have some. I'm not gonna say all the other stuff that I'm thinking in my head right now. I'm trying to find a nicer way to say it, but you gotta have a lot more magical element in this movie. Like you gotta spend some money on the effects. How about that? I'll just say that. Spend some money on the effects,
I'll go with that.
right? But they didn't do too much of that. I don't think I disliked it as much as Mike from his initial take, but I do think we all disliked a lot of the same things. I agree that they were trying to hit on to something with bringing forward to the forefront or introducing this discomfort that resides amongst black people when they get around white people. My biggest issue with that is you didn't exactly explain or describe or dispel any of it. You really just played into it and made it into this laughable matter all somehow on both sides, and I think it's disrespectful to both parties. But there is maybe two scenes in this entire movie that I think can actually get the message across that they were trying to get across. And that means that there are about an hour and 20 minutes that we can't get back because you could have did it in one TV episode. But with that being said, I'm not gonna boo-hoo or poo-poo the effort, but I am gonna give this a really hard critique as we move forward through this discussion. I'm gonna stop there because I have a lot more I would like to say, but it would kind of ruin the body of this episode. Hey Nick, you could skip first impressions if you want to. I totally understand.
No, I feel like I have a good rapport with you guys enough to talk honestly about how I felt about the movie.
I agree.
Concisely put, I think, I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. That's for sure. I think really what it comes down to is that this movie punches way above its intellectual weight class. It seems to me like a movie made by somebody who just freshly came out of college that was enrolled in a critical race theory class that like got all of the good talking points that sound really snappy and intellectual, but don't really grasp them as deeply as somebody maybe should if they want to tackle something as nuanced and sort of complicated as what Black people might perceive as white discomfort. So I just don't think that it does it well enough, and then it kind of treats it like you were saying, Keelan, in such a I don't know, laissez-faire type of way that it doesn't really do. To me, it didn't seem as though it did a service to Black people, and of course, it wasn't aiming to do any service to white people. But you would think that like they were trying to have some type of message. What I found really ironic about the message that they're trying to imply is that there is a lot of this in the movie boils down to, if you're polite to white people, then you're a sellout. And I think that that's kind of a sort of like really surface level understanding of something much deeper. And I don't think that it does any liberty or justice to what the point of that statement is. And so I think that it was handled poorly. As far as the direction goes, it's okay. The visuals are nothing like too impressive. There's not a whole lot of action here. There's not a whole lot of magic. So I can't really critique it on that. But I did feel like it's somebody who is exuberantly just out of, like an Ivy League critical race theory course and needed to get this out for whatever reason without really trying to make it a little bit more subtle. Like everything is so ham-fisted, like explicit. They're not even trying to be implicit about any of the nuance here. It's all just very cut and dry. And I think that does a disservice to the message, and that's obvious by the box office of this movie that a lot of people felt this way. So I don't think that I'm speaking out of turn when I say that they missed the mark.
Right. I think that is a great critical and still a great way to explain that they definitely missed the mark. I just learned a little bit about the director. I forgot to mention that a minute ago, and I just actually sent you guys something. But the director of this, his name is Kobe Libby or Libai. Again, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I actually saw his face just now and remembered, like, oh, that's where I've seen this guy from. Like, I didn't realize, I never looked his face up until just now as we're on the episode. He was on the that Jordan Kepler show on Comedy Central.
I missed that.
Yeah, me too,
all
probably.
Good, all good. Yeah. I didn't really watch much of it, but I do remember it. And he is a biracial guy, I believe. At least he looks biracial, and I hate to say it that way, but he basically looks like Justice Smith without the beard.
I was thinking they both look like Drake, but okay.
I mean, hey, but this movie, just thinking about that and in context, because I didn't know how, I didn't have a face to it, but now having a face to it and then realizing like, oh, this guy's supposed to come from a comedy-ish background, probably some theater in there as well, because I didn't research him. I'm thinking that he, in his mind, this movie, because he's the director, he's not the writer, but I'm thinking he, in his mind, he's directing this movie from his aspect. Like, he's like, oh, this is how my experience went in this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, if you need to hear it here or anywhere first, and this is not I don't think it's the most critical of opinions, and I'm not really trying to attack the guy. Your experience is not everybody's experience, but thank you for lending that experience because somebody can make a better version of what your experience and my experience plausibly was or is. Um,
Funny enough, the idea of a black Harry Potter, as reductive as that sounds, would have been hilarious.
I think so.
Like
And
it
I
would
think
have
he
been.
believes so as well.
But yeah, but that's the thing is like, okay, and this is something that I was thinking about and while I was watching this too is, and we've had this conversation before, so I'm not really breaking any controversial ground, but it would have been so good to just build a world where you're focused on black people and their magical abilities as like wizards or whatever. And I know that this is like, it's sort of like not the point of the movie. The point isn't magic. Point isn't any of that. It's about the race relation thing, but I mean, man, I don't know. I am just so tired of that being the only thing that a story has to offer without anything else, and
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like fun. It feels like it feels like I need to be whipping myself on the back while I watch it. You know what I mean? Like flogging
Damn.
myself, I mean,
No, I
not in the
understand.
racial context, but like in
No, I
the
totally get you.
Benedictine monk context where, I'm wearing a hair shirt and I got a cat of nine tails and I'm hitting myself in the
Yeah,
back.
you're
You
learning
know
your
what I
lesson.
mean? Yeah, right,
Yeah, I
exactly.
get you. I get you. And I think that's the thing is I honestly think that could be where he thought he was going with this. And let's keep it real. We know enough about movies to know that there's always a version before the studio version. Maybe this movie had a little more of that beforehand, right?
Maybe. Yeah.
Um, Something that I think we all have agreed to. I don't know if we've said it on air, but these kind of movies, and not like when I say these kind of movies, I mean like you just hit on, Nick, the movies that focus so hard on race relations, they usually have a much larger element that could be used to convey the message, and they totally
Yes.
ignore it because they want to make sure they hit their markers. I
Hmm.
think this movie, unfortunately, by doing that, they missed every marker except for one, and they hit it in the most cringy of ways. To where it can go highly unnoticed by someone who doesn't already understand the connotations of what the message is in this movie. Um, there I wrote something down actually about that where it's like, oh yeah, this movie kind of pushes the point that white people's discomfort is their loss of humanity, and black people's ability to give them back that humanity through making them comfortable again is the magic. So you didn't need people
Yeah.
floating and all of that. So the magic, but they never really said that. They never really explained that. I think if you take the disappearing, you take the floating out, and you take out the 1800 style candles of storyboarding, then you actually get a moment where you can explain that the real magic is exactly what I just said. The real magic is a black person's ability in polite society, because in our real society it doesn't really work. Fight start, all kind of crap, right? But in polite society, just being able to make someone feel comfortable in an environment they're not comfortable in. Why couldn't we see a couple of white people in the middle of Compton, and instead of everybody, yo, hey, what's up, homie, and all of that good mess, then you have somebody invite them. Oh wait, because that's every other movie where white people go to the hood. Never mind. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's my
Well,
point. It's been done a
yeah,
few times, and it's not
it
the
does.
hardest story to tell. But they try to introduce. I'll say that they tried to introduce the polite black guy into being some level of obscure monster that he's never been in his entire life. He's always been the appeasing type, and that's what made this, in my opinion, a little harder of a story to tell.
Yes, and I think in the other perspective, as the white guy watching this, I found myself noticing the lack of humanity that all of the white characters have. You mean to tell me that this really nice guy who's being supportive wouldn't be greeted by another white person in the same reciprocal manner? Like
Right.
that to me is like it seems to me like a stretch because like I know that that's not the thesis of the movie, but you would think that people would have a nuanced understanding of how humanity works. And again, what I can't get out of my head with the subliminal messaging of this movie is that like if you're polite to white people, then you're a sellout and you're some type of disservice to your race. And I think to myself, well, we all live in a society and we all try to be nice to each other. So where is that line exactly, right?
Mhm.
Is it saying hello? Is it holding a door open for somebody? Is it, where is the line? Because we do have these hyperbolous situations in this movie, but you know, like it never acknowledges the fact that you could just be nice to somebody for the sake of being nice, and it doesn't have to be some sort of power dynamic that's happening. And I
Right.
think specifically they did cut out a moment at the end when
Mhm.
Justice goes on his final vent about telling the guy how he feels about things. You can tell that there's supposed to be a moment where the white guy actually
Yes.
understands, but
Yes,
they
and
cut
that to
that
me is the
out.
only moment they actually hit on, and yes, I feel like they took that out as well. And
Yeah,
two more things, and then we can go through a little bit of the story actually.
sure.
Um, for me, one was the well, no, I'll say that one second. It seemed like the only way for Black people to be happy in this movie was to be of service to white America,
Yeah.
which, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. But
Well, you
as
seen him
the
on his farm, right?
I did. I did, and that was not supposed to be some old timey. That's supposed to be in current times. Do explain.
Mm-hmm.
Do explain. And he made sure, hey, we're not doing roots when he was going through his costume change. And it's like, sir, are you looking at what you're wearing? Because I've been
Right.
on a farm in 2023, not in 2024, but I've been on a farm in today's era. And listen, they wearing the same clothes that I'm wearing when I'm just sitting on my back porch or just, going to pick an orange or something.
Well, conversely to that, I mean, you got
Some of them dressing nicer,
you got the corporate brother over there grabbing wieners.
grabbing nuts.
Oh,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
he learned that from orientation, but we'll talk about that part in a minute.
Is that what he learned?
Apparently.
Oh, okay.
Did you not see? Have you
I
not
did
heard?
see it.
Well, it's just another humiliation ritual. I
Right.
mean, like
That's why I wanted. Yeah.
and
Yes.
see, that's the weird part about this movie is that it really is trying to posture itself as some sort of um, social justice-y representation, you know, for the Black experience. But then it throws in a scene like that, which is a blatant humiliation ritual that makes me feel like, wait a minute, who wrote this? You know,
True.
like
Yeah. I'm right there
so.
with you. And or maybe we want to push that on it. And what's really happening is they use one of our faces to push the same agenda.
Yeah, maybe.
That was underhanded of me. Sorry.
No, it's
Um,
all right. I get you. This
but at the
movie's
same time,
divisive, so we're gonna say some
yeah.
off
Oh,
cuff stuff. So
Yeah.
for
you know,
sure.
people just need to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Fuck their
Oh,
feelings.
we should have did a disclaimer.
Oh, we should have.
Well, there's your disclaimer. Nick just gave it to you. If you're not ready, you got this far, you probably could stick around because we probably gotten a good amount of it out of the way. But if you aren't ready and you think we're gonna get worse, which we might, this is your
Subscribe
time to take
anyway.
one out. Oh yeah, please hit subscribe because we're gonna have plenty more reviews where we won't be this divisive. But let's also keep in mind that through this entire movie, it seemed like everybody thought the Latina was a white lady.
Which
And
one?
she's Asian.
Oh, she's Asian?
Yeah,
Ooh.
I believe.
Uh,
You know what's funny about
I
her?
think in real life she's Asian.
She's
Oh, are
not
you
even
talking
billed
about
on.
Anli?
Yeah, Ann
Anli?
Lee.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
She is Taiwanese and something.
Yeah.
I was
So
just
yeah, in
looking
real
at it.
life she's Asian, but I thought they were trying to play her as an Asian. I mean, excuse me, as a Latin woman in the movie.
I thought she
Um,
was supposed to be just white.
oh no, they wanted you
Well,
to
so
feel
did
that
the
way,
other
but
guy.
yeah, so did the other guy and the lady. I never
I
thought
mean,
there were any ethnic background. Like, sir, what? Do you
yeah,
see her? And that's not a bad. I'm
Well,
not saying that in a
you know
bad
what's
way. It's
funny
just
about
like
that actress is that I think she took herself off, or she demoted her billing on IMDb because she's not even on the main cast list. You have to go into the full cast list to find her, and
really,
she's like the third lead act.
yeah.
You know?
She's literally right behind Dag.
Yep. Yep.
That's crazy. I don't even want to know the story behind that.
Mm-hmm.
That's disconcerting to say the least.
well, her quote on IMDb is that she could relate because she is mixed race.
I could see that.
Yeah, I'm sure
I'm
she
not
can
sure about
relate.
that one.
I'm sure
She can
she's
speak
also
many
trying.
languages, but not literally literal languages.
Oh yes, metaphorical languages, and you know, of course, she's probably not trying to get actress work in China or anything.
Taiwanese and Irish.
You know, and I'm sure
Wow,
she's
that's
just.
a
I'm sure she's trying to just, you know, She just doesn't. She didn't update the IMDb. They just didn't bill her on it.
They just didn't give her due.
Yeah, they just didn't give her her dues. It's not that she wants to get a job in China as an actress or anything.
That is hilarious.
Talk about racism. Let's talk about racism.
It's so crazy because I'm sitting here like, I think people would have to know a little more about the markets to understand that.
Yeah,
but I'm right there with you. But yeah, so let's get to this movie and how it all breaks down. So the movie starts out with, I don't even know if we want to call that a quote, but just a message across the screen that says, "A magical Negro is a Black supporting character who exists solely to serve a white protagonist storyline. Some believe magical Negroes only exist in stories and others know the truth." Um, yeah, I think that's where you get to that moment where you immediately from the jump of this movie, it's either you understand what they're saying or you don't. And if you don't, this movie might actually be funny and entertaining to you. If you do understand, you're just waiting for them to get to the point because what are we talking about?
Yeah, and this goes back down to the line too, right? Because we know that this is a trope. I mean, Spike Lee obviously coined this term. He made it very popular, but we can look back in cinema and talk about that, motif or that archetype. But where is the line? Because you could say Red from Shawshank Redemption is one of those characters, or you could say, what's his name? Michael Clark Duncan from The Green Mile is one of those characters.
Who was kind of shout out in this movie.
Yeah, that's
exactly
he was. What that was.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And and that's kind of fair enough to a point, right? And that's the thing is like, where is that line? And the movie just obliterates any distinction of a line and says there is no line. Any act of symbiosis between a Black person and a white person thus becomes a subjugation. And I think that's a really cut and dry thinking. Ironically, it's black and white thinking, and we live in a lot of gray area, and there's nuance to a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, wholeheartedly. Let's see. So, Aaron, spelled Aaron, but Aaron is an artist. He makes yarn art. He can't get any of his pieces bought. Actually, that I probably understood more than most of this movie. He's the abstract artist in a gallery full of abstract artists, and being the only minority there and having the most obscure art, nobody was willing to actually listen or figure out what was going on because he didn't fit into the niche or the norm. He wasn't making street art about gangs and how terrible it is to be a Black man. He was simply reaching into his creative bag and trying to do something different. So that in itself was a turnoff.
Yeah, and a little personal anecdote: as somebody who is dumb enough to think that my art meant anything, I have put myself into that position before, and I guarantee you, it's just because his art sucked. Because that's what happened to me, man. I entered my art into a gallery and then was there for 5 minutes before I took everything down and left because I was like, oh. These are serious people. I am not a serious artist.
My God, they are all such serious people. And I'm not even knocking
stick figures on the wall.
I mean, I basically was the stick figures on the wall. Like there was, not much more complexity than that.
Yeah, I get you. I've been to an art gallery before, like an art show, in a gallery, and I did not, and not because I was Black. It was a lot of other Black people there, Black artists, multicultural situation. I did not feel like I had enough snuff up my nose to be in that arena. It really, it made me wonder, why don't I go to poetry night a little bit more? Because that probably is a little more my speed.
Yeah, if you ever want to feel like you don't belong, hang up one of your shitty art pieces at a gallery and.
Yeah, I didn't understand. I was just walking around. I feel like I shouldn't even have been walking around. I tell you that. I didn't want to. You know how? And I'll say this: they didn't have like the ritzy hors d'oeuvres, but there were actually people like, "Hey, there's a snack table over there," and I didn't feel like I was allowed to go to the snack table because I felt like someone would ask me a question that I could not even understand what they were asking. I just avoided people.
Plus, if you don't see other people eating, you don't want to be that person that runs to the snack table.
Man,
I'm not gonna lie and say I thought that in the moment. I'm not
I'd
gonna lie
have
and
been
say
to
I
a
thought that
few
in the
art
moment.
shows. I don't get art, so I stand out like a sore thumb no matter what. Because I'm sitting there trying to figure out what the hell I'm looking at, and what makes one piece more beautiful than the other when they all look
Mm.
just like vomit.
Yeah, that's
Some of them.
true in certain regards, but I mean, you know, something that speaks to you when it does, right? Like, you
Right.
know.
Then nothing ever really speaks to me unless it's an actual picture of something that I can recognize.
That's
So
fair.
you don't like the abstract stuff.
I don't get it.
Mm.
It's not that I don't like it or not. I don't get it. It
Mike's
doesn't
like, what
make
makes
any
this
sense to
special
me.
other than what that kindergartner did last week?
Right.
No, I understand that. I definitely
Like
get it. Yeah.
you know Marty Keelan.
Oh yeah, Marty has some good
Yeah,
work.
Marty tried to explain it to me because he's an actual artist. I don't get it.
No, yeah, I've seen some of Marty's pieces. Marty has good work. Shout out to Marty.
Yeah, and
Um,
I don't get it.
good dude too. But let's get back to the movie real quick
Right.
because I'm like I could keep going about this art thing, but so in the movie, again, he's told by the gallery runner to go and talk to what she calls the last collector left, his last attempt at somebody who might actually understand his art. And that person immediately thinks he's a waiter. And instead of growing some cojones and saying, hey, no, I'm an artist, I want you to check out my work, they turn and go to the bar to get this guy something to drink. And he's told off by the gallery runner, like, yo, if you can't stand up for yourself, I'm not standing up for you. You just lost your show. Get out of here. Get out of here, you bum.
I mean,
Um,
that's I don't know if that was supposed to be played as racism, but that is very fair of the curator to say,
you
if you're not
right.
willing to sell your art, I can't sell it for you.
If she didn't have that line, I would have been like, oh, that was terrible. But because she
Mm,
said that, it was like, is this movie about racism or is it about having a backbone? And actually, when we get
yeah,
to the end, I still kind of have that question. Is
yeah,
this movie
that's
about
fair.
racism or is it about standing up for yourself? And
Right.
no, I'm not going to bend over backwards for you because no,
Hmm.
because it's not 1932 anymore.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I
Fair.
digress. Um, Aaron's followed by a gentleman named Roger who we saw as the bartender to an ATM. A racist moment pops off where a drunk lady tries to get him to help her with the ATM, and then she can't find her card. She screams out, "Oh my God, somebody stole my bag. Somebody stole my ATM card." I don't remember the name she hollered out, but Brendan, come help me. And then the white guy runs over and he's about to beat up the scrawny little white guy. I mean, excuse me, the scrawny little black dude that I'm sure the girl could have beat up.
Freudian slip.
Who's not standing or not trying to run away or anything. As soon as I
Totally
saw that
confused.
chick, I was like, I would have just walked away from her,
So fast.
honestly.
And I think
Yeah, I
that was
wouldn't
them
have,
trying
I
to
wouldn't
paint
have
him as too
engaged
nice.
her in all that way. Like,
At
nah,
any way. No,
No.
not at all. I just
I'm
listen,
not
I just
holding
walked
your
away from the
purse. I ain't
ATM.
your man.
No,
Well, not just
you're an
that.
absolute mess, and I am not getting around you.
Right. And not just that. I am walking away from the ATM. So if I'm walking away, I 10 times out of 10 have even $10 in my pocket. He only has $17 in his account. But I'm walking away with something in my pocket. I'm not walking back over here to you drunk at the ATM and then I have cash in my pocket and it just can't. Nah. Sorry, ma'am. No habla inglés.
Right.
I don't have
Yeah.
my glasses. I can't see. I don't know what to tell you, but I'm going the other way. Mind you, that's all the Spanish I know right there. I just blew it over. That's it. I can't even
They
say
couldn't
nothing past that.
they couldn't get a legit ATM, by the way. They had to get one of those 7-Eleven ATMs and put it on the sidewalk. Like that's where they
And
go.
right up the street from I guess a club or whatever
Yeah.
have you. It was just in the middle of nowhere. But
It's not even bolted down. It's just sitting
that
there.
that looked like they were like near like the city of Vernon, on the other side of downtown, old on the other
Yeah.
side of old Chinatown
You
and all that
mean
good
where?
stuff.
You mean where the pork fat factory is?
Yes, actually, on the other side. And yeah, it put it this way. I know our city well enough to say I know the area they were in. That's like that's the lower side of Glendale, basically. And I was kind of like, yeah, awkwardly enough, an ATM just in the middle of the road there isn't as weird as you might think it is, because they have the weirdest little places where shops and stuff are. But um, he gets met by Roger. Roger saves him from the situation magically, and we see that immediately that Roger is something of a wizard, and he offers him a job in client services at a client services firm, and is honest. Nobody gets your yarn art. He magically blinks him to a barber shop, black barber shop. He gives the nod to the brother, shows him what he needs to show him. He twists the hair brush. I forget what those are called because I don't have no hair. Sorry, guys. but I know it. The
Badger
little sponge.
brush.
Actually, it's a sponge brush. What is it?
Was it? Oh, I thought it
Yeah.
was a badger brush.
I think it was. I thought it was like a larger sponge brush. For
Oh, it could have
helping
been. Yeah.
freeform locks.
Mm-hmm.
But and he basically drops him into a recruiting orientation for this magical group of Negroes, essentially, not essentially, directly, exactly. Um, and immediately they get into the learning session. This is client services. You want to be as authentically black as possible, but as long as it's acceptable to whites, which means you don't want to be authentically black, because I guess we all walk around holding our nuts and saying "shut fool." Oh wait,
Yeah.
nope, that's a little
Yeah.
more Latin. Sup, bruh.
Yeah.
There we go. There we
I
go.
Yeah.
thought
There
I
you
Had
was.
to
go.
tap
There you
in.
go.
Never mind.
Don't
Yeah.
do it.
Because
Don't do it. You
authentic
said that word
means
enough,
that
Mike.
authentic
Sorry.
means you have to be the exact opposite of anything white, and that's a problematic supposition in and of
Not in
itself.
L.A.
No,
Maybe
I
they should have set
know.
this movie somewhere else.
Maybe. Right.
And to
Yeah,
be
that's
clear,
true.
something else about the director, he's from Indiana. I don't
Oh,
think
well,
he's from
that
Gary,
explains a
Indiana.
lot more.
But if he was from Gary, Indiana, it wouldn't explain a damn thing. But he is
Yeah.
from
Man, I
Indiana.
heard about that place.
Hey, I'd have met a couple of brothers. And you know what? Sidebar, I've met people from Gary, Indiana that are black and white. They all can kick my ass. I'm gonna say that right here, right now.
That's a tough place.
It's a tough place. Like nice people, but you just
Mm-hmm.
know in the back of their mind is like they blink too hard, you might break a bone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but either way, we find out that Roger basically kidnaps Aaron and tells him that he's such a talented young man, and his talent is convincing white people to be comfortable because that's what their job is at this client services firm. They convince white people to be comfortable. This way, white
Yeah.
people can be more successful in a white-driven society.
What it really comes down to is just being a really decent person and nice. Like I love that that's like the thing. It's like, oh, we have to make sure that white people are comfortable. But every time they do that, it's just like it's like a interaction that you would have with a friend. You know what I mean? And I
In
just
a way, yeah.
it is
That's
in
kind
a
of their point, though.
No,
I
yeah.
That's
know,
how
It's,
but
it's for the interactions. I agree. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
they,
like if somebody's in distress and you're a caring person, you go up to them and you talk them through it and listen to them, like how is that any different than what they're suggesting is problematic? You know what I
Right.
mean?
I
I
do.
don't know. Like it gets a little bit muddy with what their statement is about that because a lot of it read to me like, especially when Dag first shows up, he's a master at sort of peacemaking,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And of course, those guys were in the wrong. They were drunk, and the chick was a mess, and they shouldn't have done that. No way. But the
Right.
fact that he was able to diffuse the situation with a couple sentences is masterful. But
Mm-hmm.
that's somebody who has compassion, and that somebody that can see see things from different angles. I guess the supposition is that white people don't have that, right? Like
That's
white
kind
people
of what they're
can't
trying
do
to get
that.
at. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you know what's
Okay.
so crazy you say that is something else I gathered was if they were talking to other black people, according to the way this movie's running, they would have been considered soft.
Yeah. Yes. Right. That's kind
It's
of what I'm getting at is that if they had treated another black person that way, they would have been a sellout because they're
Mhm.
trying to stratify white whatever, in
Code switching in the
society.
wrong situations.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Code
Kafka
switching the
trap. You
wrong
just
way.
can't win either way. And that's kind of a bad place to put yourself in.
Sucks. Yeah, it sucks. But yeah, their job is to appease whites to save black lives, and Aaron is hyper aware that white people, and you know he does his best to not offend them. And it's kind of like you have to ask yourself, as he said to him, well, what did you do to cause this to happen to you, and what will they do next because of their inherent anger? Now listen, eh. But I get it. Like I get the undertones. I think we all understand the undertones. It's just the execution made it cringe. It made you really look at this movie a couple to like just
Yeah, but
get to
they'd
the
like
point.
have Dag and Justice Smith walking through Compton and have the same spiel.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like the racism would be blatant then.
Oh, it'd be
You
ultra
know?
profound.
Yeah. So I mean, like that's kind of the problem is like there's a double standard at play here that is not logically consistent.
Mhm. I did like the feelings meter, the
Yeah,
White
the
tears.
white tears meter.
yeah, the white tears meter. That was crazy.
Jeez.
Um,
I was trying to find an image of that so that I could put it up every time I talked, but I couldn't find an image of it, unfortunately.
That
but
would have
then we
been pretty
find out
damn funny.
I
we
know.
find out that
Bummer.
the magic yeah, that sucks. That would have been funny. But we find out that the magic is collective and selfishness will destroy everyone's ability to be magical. And I like the idea of black unity being a power. I did like that. Like that was probably my favorite part of this movie. Like, wait, so if we all work together, I could levitate and shit? That's dope. I could support that. I could.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong
Um,
with that. I mean, like that's nice. But
yeah,
the problem is that really nice message is then cake or couched in the idea that that can only happen if white people are comfortable,
Right.
right.
you know. And that
Um,
I don't know. I mean, like, yeesh, that's hard.
Yeah, listen,
Yeesh.
I don't think I want any of everybody. I mean, any of every of any particular group of people to be comfortable every time I walk into somewhere. If there's
Yeah.
not some level of people who feel the way they feel, what's my existence really?
And when can you feel the way you want to feel? That's the
That's what
question
I mean.
too, right?
That's
Yeah.
that's exactly what I mean. Like, what is my existence? Because if everybody is all hunky dory every time you walk into something, now I'm indifferent. I don't even know how I'm supposed to feel.
Right.
I might be having a bad day today. Is it
Right,
wrong for me to have
exactly.
a bad day? But
Yes. Yeah.
It could be dangerous, apparently.
Uh-oh.
apparently,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
not for me to do something wrong, but for someone else to do something wrong. I'm having a bad day. Now I got to risk you doing something hard. Like, come on, bro. But they
Well, I
take a cop
mean,
to the club.
that's kind of what the whole premise of kind of what the premise of the movie is. You know, cop has a bad day. That means somebody black might die.
Just might die. But what about the black cops?
Who cares?
No, they don't have bad days. They're perfect, bro.
What
Right.
about the Asian
The
cops?
only
I'm
the
just-
only time they have a bad day is when a white person has a bad day.
That's a fair point. That's a fair
Yeah.
point. I should have wrote that down. I missed that in
Mhm.
my notes.
Yep.
But yeah, so at this point is really, in my opinion, where the movie just kind of stops. Like it was progressively trying to get to a place, and then Aaron meets a girl and starts dodging his job for his
Yeah.
first client.
Yeah.
Literally, as soon as everything gets going, like, oh, he met a girl, and I guess that's the thing is, women drive a wedge in between your success in
That
life. I
old
don't.
trope. Yeah, that old trope. White woman enters, all of a sudden the mission is aborted.
That's it.
Kryptonite.
I did think it was funny the little moment they had in line where he bumps into her, thinks she spills the coffee on her, nothing that happens. When we get to the end, I question now their entire interaction. But
Right.
he's checking her out for coffee, and then they have that awkward moment of, is he checking her out? Is he not checking her out? He does the ultra polite thing by saying that she's beautiful, and he wasn't really checking her out. And she tries to play him out like, you called me pretty. I didn't call you pretty. I called you beautiful. And I was like, oh shit, he might have a little bit of game here. But that's not how that plays out.
Nope.
And I mean, it would have been nice. But then she takes the ultra aggressive route and like, oh no, I was just checking out that ass. And I was like, oh, they have chemistry. That's cute.
Is that what that
Okay, where's
was?
this going? Yeah, that's what that was.
No,
Oh, my
that
bad.
was a role reversal. He was the
Yeah.
demure one, and she was the aggressive one.
Right.
Yeah, but
That's why I
that's how
kind
they
of took
tried
it.
to make it. They tried to make it all cutesy like, and they both smiled and like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. And I was like, oh, they're gonna hold hands.
I took out a big wedge of cheese.
some smelly Limburger.
Right.
Cheese. The old cartoons of the '90s and Limburger cheese.
Mm-hmm.
That now that's
I
a
always
trope
were
that they
told
can
that
bring
was the
back.
smelliest cheese.
And they were wrong.
Yeah.
Limburger is
Well.
smelly, but it ain't the smelliest. Anyway, so Aaron goes and meets his first client, or finds out about his first client, whose name is
Jason.
Jason.
Chet.
Thank you, Chet.
Kyle.
Biff.
Biff. No, man, don't do Biff wrong. Biff is a good character from a different movie. We're gonna let that go.
Right.
But we end up finding out that Jason works at a tech firm. Lizzie works at the same tech firm. Lizzie is the girl that he bumped into in the line at the coffee shop. And he has
What?
to now get close to Lizzie to help the client, which I immediately saw as a downhill battle. What are we
Oh
doing?
yeah, yeah.
He meets a girl, he has a little thing with her, they bat googly eyes at each other, and then he has to try to hook up the guy who has an anger problem somehow and it's just indifferent, hook them up together. Huh?
Yeah, and that was his that was his mess up because it wasn't like the white dude wanted to be with her
Not
at
at
He
all.
any
didn't. He just
point.
didn't want them together.
He well, no. I don't even think it's that.
I think
Here's
he
the
was
thing.
indifferent to that.
Right. I don't think he cared. What the thing was, and I don't think they realized in their writing to even put it into the story. The issue Jason had after the last job he had wasn't about the demographic change and the fact that that app didn't read black faces, which is a real life issue that actually happened, which I thought that was funny for them to put in. But it was that he realized she was a better designer than he was. She was going to override and take over all of his projects, and he was envious of that. He was jealous of that. He was angry at that, and that was affecting everything. It had jack shit to do with Aaron or black people or
Yeah.
any of the racial shit they tried to put on it. It was solely about the girl
By the
and the
way,
fact that the
that's
girl was better than he was at the job.
right. By the way, that's the real superpower. By the way, I don't know why anybody's complaining about that. You're not being picked up by facial recognition. That's very good. Like,
Invisible.
that's very good.
I
You don't want to.
mean,
Don't complain about that one, guys.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna say even in real life when it happened, Nick, I don't think black people were the ones complaining. Just being real.
No, I know
I
they
think
weren't.
the facial recognition software that was not able to pick up black faces was made to find black faces, and that was the problem.
No. Yeah.
that's
Fair
a
enough.
different conversation right there.
That is a different conversation, but everybody take that one home and think about it a little bit. But yeah, so yeah, again, I wrote here, you realize that that's his competition. He doesn't have a crush on her, that's just his competition, but that is Aaron's crush. We find out that the company owner, he's just typical techie douchebag guy who wants to be super relatable, is in no way relatable. And he has his own level of prejudice like any other human on this planet, but he's not allowed to because he runs a mega firm. And Aaron is told that he should ask the girl out until it seems like Jason might be a little interested in her. And then he's told he cannot in any way like the girl. He must hook them up to make everything work because he
Sacrifice
wants
for the
two
client.
things. And you know what? I actually understood that part of his job when it came down to the nitty and gritty. I thought they were going to masterfully play that out because that storyline seemed to be very well done and planned out. Something I said off air and I'll say on air. This movie had about 4 or 5 different storylines that could have went in different directions, and all of them got cut short. This movie, in fact, I will say right now, ends open-ended. The movie ends completely open-ended.
Yeah, because technically he should still have his abilities. He still got his memory.
Still got memory. Yeah. Everybody is still doing their jobs. Everybody still has the memory of what happened, except nobody has magic now. Well, but there is another society.
Do they not have their they don't have their magic at all?
It seems not at the end.
And he's gonna feel real stupid when they break up in 6 months.
Yeah. Because this is LA.
He got exiled for nothing.
Yeah, this is LA. But so yeah, we find out, like we just kind of alluded to, that if he goes against helping out the client, then he will be banned from the society. His mind will be erased. Let's see. Aaron wants out of the mix of this relationship thing. They have a discussion about Jason's guilt at the bar. Lizzie feels like she should have stuck up for Aaron, and then she does the next morning. And that's when, again, I started thinking like, oh, snap, it's going to get good. And what else happens after that? Oh, she's told by the other lady that's running the company for the guy whose name I can't remember right now, that, they're the rear admiral and their job is to make I'm going to say it for what it is. As the women in power, their job is to make the men feel overpowered and make sure that they're doing their job because women have to operate in the background essentially.
Ego stroke.
What is this movie about again?
Yeah, but this is also a subordinate employee that needs to make her boss look good to keep her job. So the
Right.
context of the men-women dynamic would have been the same if the boss was a woman and the second in command was a man.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like it's not really addressing the sort of sexual dynamics or whatever. It's just addressing the power dynamics between a boss and a subordinate.
Right. Right. The
Yeah,
undertone is that they're women doing it. I get what you're saying.
yeah. Oh well, yeah. That's what they try to make it about. But it's like, well,
But you're
no.
right.
If
It's not
your
really.
job is
Yeah.
to make the boss look good, that's your job. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
This could have been a cast full of men, and then you're right. The storyline
Yeah.
still holds up.
Yeah.
Let's see. So yeah, so Lizzie is told that even though she created the design, she won't be the one presenting. Jason will. Jason goes into a meeting. I did skip the fact that they all went out to the bar. Oh no, I didn't. They went out to the bar, had a talk, and then that's when she came back. But what's his name? Aaron and Lizzie end up going, talking, having a good old time on a walk, and they almost kiss after he shows her his art, and opens up to her. But then Jason calls, and the magic fails, and everybody is summoned. And essentially, he don't. Oh no, the magic fails, and that's when the president of the company or the society, the firm, is now sitting atop of what do we call those? One of those
A lifeguard chair.
yeah, lifeguard chair, or even like a tennis referee
Yeah.
stanchion.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle and Brandon had to help her get up there. And Kyle went to Dartmouth. He don't need this shit. No, excuse me. Brandon went to Dartmouth. He don't need this shit. And Kyle, where'd you go, Kyle? Cornell. Basically still Ivy. He don't need this shit neither.
Right.
I thought that was funny. But
that was only funny when you said it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was funny to me because I think Nicole Byer is funny, but again, they wasted her talent. Let her say some other funny shit because he don't need this shit. But I get it. Yeah, it's probably funnier when I say it.
It was
in
for me
context,
because
it
I
was
didn't
unnecessary.
laugh when she said it.
Ooh, her levitation was so awkward, by the way. You could tell that she was harnessed in. And she was not comfortable with being lifted up.
That harness was screaming.
I am almost sure
Yes.
Nicole Byer likes gravity.
I
think her and
so.
Gravity are great friends, and she was
I
not
think
trying
so.
to be lifted. Like
She
I
looks
took
so
this role, so I gotta do
uncomfortable.
this now. She
Oh,
probably
I
cussed
wonder
her
why.
the fuck out at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck was this?
Right.
Anyway, but hey, I'm sure she got a nice chunky check for it.
That's
wow,
fair.
that's a bad choice of words.
Damn, why?
Um,
Why would you do that?
Because I still think she's funny, and I'm sure she would laugh at that shit. Like, oh, he's so sweet, trying to protect me. Anyway,
Protect her little feelings.
yeah, she laugh at it. I think only because again, I like her comedy, so I think that in my like that's up her alley of the kind of shit she says on stage. So I think it's funny. But anyway, the magic fails, and I don't get it because originally we we're thinking the magic failed because he had a moment with Lizzie and it was organic. It's not like he started pressing the issue. He's not trying to undercut anybody. He's a likable guy. The girl likes him. Why is that a problem in this movie?
Only because he suggested to the white dude that they could get together. It was his fault.
Fuck. He was told to do that by his dickhead mentor.
No, Dak told him that he should go ask her out, that they're not
and then
monks.
He told him that he couldn't because he thought that they liked
That was
each other.
after that.
But that's after Justice Smith suggests that she's so great and that you guys work together as a great team.
Right.
And so
You're
that
right.
planted the idea in his head that they could be a couple. And then that's when he wasn't allowed to see her anymore.
He was trying to do his job the right way. Nobody told him what the parameters was.
But he knew how he felt about the girl. He could have just not said anything about it and comforted him in another
virgin.
way. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
This is like his first girlfriend, first girl that actually shows some reciprocal interest. We're not gonna fame the project. We know what's happening here. Tragedy. But either way, at the very beginning of all of this, even though he has this organic thing and he's about to speak up and let it be known what happened between him and Lizzie, Tanya speaks up and Tanya lets it be known that she went off on her client, and Tanya was apparently supposed to be one of the smarter of those in the society. However, Tanya is forced to live in America as a regular ass black person.
No,
I'm a regular ass black person in America.
just like me.
How are you still alive? I don't know.
Because I could dance
Barely.
underwater.
Oh,
Exactly.
it's because you guys are making me comfortable. That's why. I'm sorry. I forgot. I
Oh,
forgot.
I thought it was because I could dodge raindrops like the Dogon tribe.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, yeah. You could dance. You could run between the raindrops.
That's right. Um, but as I said here, it seems like Aaron knew it was him. But the magic is not restored. Eventually, the magic is restored, and let's
After a
see.
few
He
pats on the
tries to
crotch.
Oh yeah, some sack taps.
sack tap, tappa
Mhm.
tappa tappa. Um, Aaron almost kills himself while he's playing a game with Jason, which I guess was to kind of startle us into thinking like he was wrong the whole time. He wasn't. Uh, he goes to Kwame for some inspiration and ends up talking to Roger. And Roger had a similar situation where he had to give up the girl. And what Roger tells him is a story about, uh, you know, it's better to live life than to live with regrets. And as long as I'm alive, then there are no regrets because that's what happened way back when his daddy was a boy shining shoes with his spit. Because it's
Mhm.
better to be black but still be palatable, and that is the key. Um, and also he could live with a memory of her, but if he tells her or does anything, then the memory of her will be erased. So they have to be friends only. But Lizzie wants more. Jason's gonna Jay Z. Jason's gonna ask Lizzie out, but that shit turns into a farce, and you can see that Aaron ain't feeling that. He's ready to shut it all down. He don't care who loses his power. He is on a mission, and he is now running around through the whole city and everywhere trying to find her. Um, they end up on
Ray,
stage.
Ray.
Shut it up. Damn. The Star Wars reference that
Once
I accidentally.
again.
Man, just can't catch
I
a
think
break.
it's terrible because that's a Star Wars reference I'm actually on board with. Like, dang.
Yeah.
But yeah, he basically ends up running into Jason. Jason finds him. They go back to the stage, and Jason's like, "I need you to be here, bro." And blah 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 blah. And he's like, "Why do you need me here, man?" I mean, isn't it obvious? Do I need to spell it out? Like, yeah, you kind of do, because the whole presentation's about diversity, which was kind of a cringy ass statement, but at the same time, it's true. And that's actually why, when I thought about that, like, oh, that's why Jason was giving it, because he had a black counterpart on the project. Not necessarily from a
Mhm.
racist aspect, but because for optical reasons, there was
Mhm.
only one other black guy in the entire office.
Yeah. Yeah, and they
And
were
same,
partners.
and
Yeah.
those two happen to be partners. Exactly. Now, does that make it better? No. Do I think that it was still that undertone that they were throwing out there? 1,000%. But what ends up happening is Aaron has this come to Betsy moment, heavens to Betsy moment, where he really just goes off on Jason and he tells him the truth. Like, I felt like my entire life, I'm 27 years old. And it wasn't until this week that I felt like I deserved to live because I live in a society that makes me think I should die. And you see Jason actually, he's no longer fighting back. At first, he's trying to overtalk him and everything. Like, I forget the lady's name and the boss's name, but like they're trying to do the whole time and overshadow it by kind of like talking into the mics, so to speak. But he has this long tangent of a rant, and it actually gets through to Jason. You can see in his body language, you can see in his face, it gets through. And as Nick said earlier, there is clearly a scene that they removed where Jason would have said something along the lines of, well, he did say, "I never knew that," but he would have said
Mhm.
something along the lines of, "I didn't know. I apologize. Thank you for helping me
Yeah.
see the light." And
Yeah.
a bright light would have shined from the heavens above, and they would have floated in, ascended. But instead of ascension, what ends up happening is he runs over to Lizzie. He takes her, and they poof off to the Empire State Building, even though they were in LA.
And he's
And
not magical anymore.
yeah, as soon as he does that, he's not magical. Now let's pause there. So what I realized was, until he did that, he technically didn't violate.
Oh yeah.
Until
True.
he went and grabbed her, what he did was he was honest with his client. He helped his client come around. He actually calmed his client down by being straightforward and honest with him, which is what we've been saying this entire time. Is all you really need to do. Be
Yep.
fucking human.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason actually saw him, and he didn't hear. At first, he didn't hear him. He didn't just hear him at this point. He saw him. He saw the person. He saw the human being. And that's what I thought this movie was all about. Why
Man,
didn't
that
they
sounds
talk
like a
about
whole
that a little
Avatar
bit more?
moment. I see
That was the
you.
Avatar moment, in fact.
I see you.
I see you slowly. Anyway, But no, absolutely. So they actually got to the point, they made it full circle. The one thing in this movie they actually tried to tie up, and instead of allowing it to be tied up and tied into a nice, pretty little bow and slapped on the ribbon, they didn't do that. They left the yarn, haha, pun intended, still spooling down the aisle, and they just let the ball of yarn roll away. So
You know
we
what would
still
have
have
been so good
Mhm.
if he didn't get if he didn't get banished, if he didn't simp for Lizzie, and he decided that he wanted to help reform the society in a
That would have been
way
great.
that would allow the black people to speak the way they wanted to and connect the way they wanted to.
Well, he
That
did
would
that.
actually,
That's the
I
crazy
know
part.
he did that, but it would have been good for him to be able to go back to the society and sort of like lecture on how his approach could help reform the
Yeah.
entire idea.
Yeah, yeah,
That would have been
I
cool.
get exactly what you're saying. Yeah,
I would have liked
and
that.
it's weird because that should have. I agree, Nick. That should have actually been a moment. That should have been, even if we don't get that Jason scene, maybe that's a scene that we should have gotten
Yeah.
where now he's holding the orientations.
hmm
You know, and I actually thought that they were going to pull one of those moments, like, we disagree with what you did, but we understand what happened, and what you did was touching, and we want to give you a position. Some, I don't know, but just play it a little
In
differently.
Monsters Inc., when they realize that they can get just as much energy from laughter as they can from screaming.
Wow.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
That's exactly
Yep.
what they had. They had a Monsters Inc. moment, and they
Yep.
totally dodged it.
They
The
dropped it.
nightmare to bed. Wow. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. See, you see what I'm saying? A lot of
Yep.
times when they had an opportunity to make this right, and Monsters Inc. is a beautiful movie. If you've never seen it,
It
go check
is.
that out. But we're not reviewing it right now.
Terrible
Um,
movie.
No, it's
Terrible
not.
for you. Oh, listen, Monsters Inc. and Monsters University. I'm saying as a grown adult, good movies.
Yep.
But instead, like Nick says, he is banished from the society. But the magic doesn't return when he's banished, like it happened with the last girl or the last person. Why? Because he's apparently given notions, and that's not explained in any way. But Roger no longer has powers. He can't wipe his mind. So he tells him, well, since you have your memory, and if this all works out, now we friends. So you better text me tonight. Basically, invite me to your art gallery show.
Yeah.
You're going back to do art, right? Now invite me to your show and let me know how your next work is going to turn out. Lizzie is consistently calling because he reminds him, well, you didn't exactly leave her in LA. And oh shit, I did leave her in New York. And he runs full speed from wherever they were because he knew where she lived, even though they
I
never
thought he
went
was
to
running to New York for a second.
I thought he was too, but then you find out he's running to her block, I guess, because they don't.
Yeah.
Apparently, they don't even go to her house. She just gets dropped off on a random block, and he happens to know that's where she's going.
Mm-hmm.
And she jumps out of her Lyft, Uber, rideshare, whatever you want to call it, and immediately they kiss. And I'm sitting here like, listen, I know a lot of women of a lot of different cultures. Not one of them am I leaving in New York, making them find their way home. And
fly
the first thing
back
they do when
on
they
their
see me
dime. Yeah.
is kiss me, right? And fly
Yeah.
back on their dime. I didn't even buy the ticket. Oh, I'm so sorry. Here, let me send you that money so you can get home. Like, what? Listen here, magical Negro. You better figure it out. But either way, she jokes about also, he tries to explain, I was in a society, but I'm no longer magical because I got kicked out of society. She says, oh, I'm in a society too. And I immediately am like, I believe her. Like I
did
snapped
too.
my fingers. Like I knew something was going on here. Like that makes sense that she's in some level of society. But then they tried to make it seem like that was nothing and just brush that under the rug. But what happens after they go away, it looks like she's walking into work, but she's not walking into work. She walks into a hair shop, a nail shop, excuse me. And she shows her so swag ring, and she walks into a door that says Society of Supportive Wives and Girlfriend, aka So Swag. And my theory on that is, because this is the only thing, in my opinion, that the whole movie was building up towards. You find out that there is a rival to the American Society of.
But she was not a wife or a girlfriend.
Well, you're right. She wasn't. She was just a supportive.
That's why it didn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, why would she be a part of a society of magical wives and girlfriends if she wasn't a wife?
It didn't say magical.
Or what? Okay, whatever. Supportive wives or
supportive. Yeah, that's their magic. Support is their magic.
Yeah, but she's not a wife or a girlfriend.
She's nothing.
See, no. Stop giving them plot.
Okay. All
Oh
right.
no, I think that they were trying. So my theory is that they were the enemies, and their whole plot from the beginning, even though she's not a wife or a girlfriend, was to take down the Asm
Why though?
because they have magic and they don't. They're just supportive. So they're undercutting all of their efforts. They can't get all of the fly fancy things like nice cars and homes because,
Oh
these
yeah, right. Because
men being empowered.
every rich white guy would just have a black best friend instead of like
Mhm.
a supportive wife or girlfriend.
That part right there.
Okay. Okay. There's a turf war going on.
There is a
Wait,
turf
what?
war going on. But
Yeah.
who has the influence over the white male?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And that's the whole point of this entire movie. That was directed by a mixed guy.
Ooh,
What?
boy. I feel so supported right now. I feel so supported.
I feel so confused, ashamed, and also to some level I feel bad for white men after watching this movie. And that in itself is a crime.
Yeah, it should be. It should be.
Because I
Yeah.
don't understand why I'm is that what y'all wanted me to feel when y'all made this movie? Because I don't know if that's not what the title tells me.
I don't think that that's the intent, but that might just be a side effect. Yeah.
I guess so, because everybody plotting on your demise. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I'm not gonna act like I thought of that before. I said that out loud. That was my first time having that thought.
Yeah.
This movie
Wow.
has way too many open end connotations.
Yeah. A lot of unexpected insinuations too, I think. Perhaps just because I think again the philosophy is a little bit it's a little bit
All
contradictory.
over the place.
It's all over the place. It
Mhm.
contradicts itself. It's yeah. So yeah, it's
But
hard to have a cogent idea that doesn't like have plot holes.
yeah, and this movie is in itself a plot hole, if we're being honest. And like I said at the beginning, this is really about a 30-minute episode of something. They could have used this damn near 2 hours to really give us some depth
They
on these concepts, and they just didn't.
they made their point in 20 minutes.
They did.
Yeah.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could have been like a little mini movie, you know what I mean? Like a 20-minute mini movie, and that actually probably would have been pretty interesting.
This could have been a 4-episode miniseries that actually made. You could have got some of the supportive wives and girlfriends in the episode. You could have got the American Society of Magical Negroes. You could have got something from Jason's background in there, and all of that cohesiveness comes together at the 4th episode.
Only if there's a society of oppressive white men.
I mean, I guess that would be Jason's side, even though I
Yeah,
didn't see him as
exactly.
that in this movie.
Yes. Secret cabal.
The cabal.
Yeah.
No one wants to watch reality.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
How?
Yeah.
Mike just took a wad of paper towels, wet them, and threw them up on the ceiling. That's
A
exactly
better,
what it was.
the better line is nobody wants to watch C-SPAN.
Dang. Now that is good. But yeah, that's the whole movie, inside, outside. I understand it no more than I did when I watched it, but I did have fun discussing it with you fellas.
Yeah.
With that being said, I mean,
That's always the best part of most of these terrible movies.
most of them,
Definitely.
yeah, most of them. I mean, anybody who's ever tuned into our shows and checks this episode or any other episode out, I'm sure they've gathered that our favorite part of watching any movie at this point is getting together, getting on air, and talking about it in an open forum. I really love when we have people chime in with their thoughts about it. Recently, I've been getting that a lot after shows, but not so much on air. But hey, it is what it is.
Yep.
With that being said, let's get some final thoughts, some ratings, and I think I know what I want to do next, but I'm not going to say it on air because I might change my mind.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. So final thoughts for me. Again, this movie, they tried, but in a poor way.
Try
I
what?
just exactly. What did they try? Every damn thing. They had a lot of concepts. They had a lot of thoughts. They tried to mash it all in together, and none of it really came full circle or into fruition. I would love to find out that somebody else saw this movie and they understood it better than I did, because I would sit and listen to them explain it to me, like break this down. But in the moment, It just seems like somebody was sitting up one night in a chat room with their friends and they came up with a concept and was like, oh, that should be a good movie. And they didn't have time to write it out. They had a deadline coming up, and this is what they fleshed out in that night.
This is a Tumblr post.
There you go.
That's
I don't. It's
basically what
definitely
it
not
is.
deep enough to be Reddit, because Reddit would
No.
have gave you way too much.
Well,
You would
no,
have way
on
more
Reddit, this
information.
would be "Am I the asshole?"
Yes, it would be.
That's a fair one. But yeah, let's see. Cinematically, I don't think this movie should be shat on. I do think they did some good trying. They chose some really great efforts, some good locations around LA. On the backside, like I said, on closer to the Glendale side, over on the industrial side of things, City of Vernon, stuff like that. The cast, in my opinion, was actually this is a pretty good cast. They just didn't give them much to work with, and that sucks. That sucks. But outside of that, I don't really know what else to comment on. What was it? Romantic comedy, was it again? That's that what
Rom
they?
com.
Yeah. There was nothing romantic or comedic about this movie. I don't know where you guys got that from. It wasn't even fantastical. This was more of a monologue at best.
Mhm.
But with that being said, I had it's been a while since I've had to watch somebody act out another person's monologue, and that's kind of what I feel like we did today. In fact, I will say that before I give my rating. This movie would have been great if it were just one or two people standing on stage giving their honest opinion about society. That's what I feel like it started as, and then it turned into this. Great way to reel us in for something that you had no fucking clue on what you were doing. Oh, sorry, I said that out loud. But yeah, I mean, listen, they got us hook, line, and sinker, bro. I'm the fish at the bottom of the pond looking at the little worm dangle, and I bit the hook and got stuck, reeled in. They put me onto the boat, and I was flopping around waiting to see what was gonna happen, and I am ashamed of
Wow.
myself for it. Hopefully, I can. Hey, you knock it off. Hopefully, I can return back to my peoples, my school of fish, and at the moment, I'm not so sure because drying out here, man. I'm drying out. With that being
Clearly,
said, with that being said, I'm gonna give this a 3, which I think is kind of generous because I don't know what there is to really rate. I kind of want to give it a 2. You know what? I think I'm gonna give it a 2 because I don't know what there is to rate. I think that's the hardest thing for me is I can't grasp onto any straws to say what there is to rate about this movie. So I'm gonna give it a 2 simply because they at least got it done. They had some really nice promotion. I like the styling of the way that they put the title of the movie together. It almost looks like a Star Wars type of deal there. And they got David Allen Greer, Justice Smith, Nicole Byers, Aisha Hines, a lot of black familiar faces, and everybody else in this movie was literally somebody that you've probably never seen in anything else. But yeah, 2 for me.
fair enough.
Mike.
I'm not so long winded. I'm gonna keep it short and cute, and keep it short and cute. You know, it's a 3 for me, and that's being generous. And I'm only giving it a 3 because I like Dag. That's it.
Mm.
That's
He
really
didn't
all.
even give us a 3 performance though.
No, but I like Dag.
But don't we all?
That's
Mm.
that's really all it
Bring
is
back
for
the
me.
show Dag. How about that?
Yep, we could do that. Let him be the
Yeah.
writer for it though,
Yeah.
because it's not gonna work if all the writers are
It's all right. It's okay.
unrelatable. How about that?
Breathe,
Yeah.
breathe, Mike, breathe.
Mhm. Unrelatable is a good word. Yeah.
Unrelatable. That's
It
because
is.
that's what happens with a lot of shows with a lot of
Your faces.
predominantly black casts. The shows are unrelatable to us because they're not living a life that we can relate to. They don't talk like people we know.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll fill the
Um,
room with a bunch of black faces that all went to Ivy League schools
Yep.
and make it
you know what?
a hood flick.
Right, and it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to. A lot of that stuff is real unrealistic. We can't relate to it. We like to see the Huxtables, but not when when they didn't grow up in the way we grew up.
Yeah.
If they got
And
it through, if they got it out the mud, we can relate to that. For to be honest.
yeah,
Mm.
I was going to say, and a lot of that crowd would think that the Huxtables are subversive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That they're actually that they're whitewashed. That's
Yeah.
what they would be. Yeah.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick to the Huxtables.
I understand. There's
I
nothing
like
wrong with
pudding pops.
there's nothing wrong with having a wholesome black family on TV. That's
Right.
Not at all.
okay. Yeah, well, now I'm in a position of yeah. Does my white guilt justify a 4, or do I be honest about this? And
I say be honest, man.
I'm gonna be
Be brutal
honest.
honest.
I know. Yeah, no, I just think this is far too divisive. I think the movie sort of punches outside of its weight class. It's tackling issues that are incredibly complex and nuanced, but it's doing with the sophistication of somebody with a very tertiary knowledge of all of this stuff, and it really shows. And I think it's not handled with any type of care. It's it you know like just set aside the fact that it's blatantly racist against white people. It's not a very kind depiction of black people either, and I think that it doesn't. I don't think that it does a very good job about painting the nuances of the black experience, at least in my opinion. As far as technically concerned, this movie isn't anything bad at all. It's not like bad cinematography wise. The acting is serviceable. It's fine. I think I'm going to give this a 1 just because I like Dag's beard. I think that it was illustrious and it looked nice.
Hey,
you know,
I definitely need to know what kind of oil sheen they put in that.
it looked great. It looked great,
Yeah.
and he looks great. And I like him as an actor, and I enjoyed him. And I like Justice Smith too. To be honest, I don't
Yeah, I do too.
dislike him. But I just feel like the material was so I don't know. It just does a disservice to anybody who watches it, and it does feel like it's for a smarmy upper crust type of collegiate mind that is sort of like fresh off of all of these highfalutin ideas about how society works, but like Mike says, has no idea how society actually works.
Do you think
So
this was written by a college kid of the
it feels that way.
It does feel that way.
other
Yeah.
persuasion?
Oh yeah. I
Okay.
I won't say any further, but yes, I know exactly where you're getting at. But yes, I
Okay.
definitely do. Yeah. So I think that it just doesn't do enough service to the thing that it's supposed to be critiquing and talking about. I think that it doesn't hit that mark. So it's going to be a 1 for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Still better than the last one.
Yeah, that's true.
I know we got all the way to the end, and I just now thought, let me find out who wrote this. So the guy who directed it actually did write this movie, and I
Okay.
believe he is a biracial guy because he,
Mhm.
he does, like Mike said, kind of look like Drake. He went to I just saw where he went to school. It said it a minute ago. And like I said, I didn't research. I didn't deep dive on him. Maybe if I had a deep dive on him earlier, pause. Maybe I had looked a little deeper into what you know what he studied at Second City in Chicago. If you know Second City and you know anything about stage and theater, essentially what I just said is he's an SNL guy that never got to SNL.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's not funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's an improv troupe guy. That's his background.
And he went to Yale.
Yeah,
There it is.
you just
There
looked
it
it up too.
is.
And he
Yeah.
went to Yale. So
Yeah.
we've hit everything about who he is and about where this movie comes from right on the head. It is definitely an Ivy League written, Ivy League tone deaf from the Ivy League stance. And yeah, this actually, now that I know all of that, I think this could have turned into a decent SNL sketch that got drawn out way too far, like a lot of other movies we've seen over the last 40 years. So
Didn't Key and Peele do this already?
Where'd you get
yes, but
decent
better.
from?
Huh?
Where'd you
I
get
said
decent?
because if it was an SNL sketch, it wouldn't have been an hour and 40 minutes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Just saying. Hey,
All right.
listen, Lonely Island started as an SNL sketch, and that got way more legs than it needed, but it got somewhere.
I have no idea what that means.
I'm just gonna say, okay, there's no need for you to know. Um, Nick, you know what I'm talking about, right?
To the Google.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, look, put it this way, Mike. Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake, and I forget the other guy's name. But yeah, with Lady Gaga and a bunch of other artists. Anyway, sorry, too much
Ugh.
about SNL because they're not involved in this. This guy didn't, and I'll say that I'll speak up for him on that. He should have probably got some SNL love, and we probably would have gotten a better work out of this because he would have had some other things going for the last couple of years. But hey, now I don't want to keep shitting on this guy because I think he tried. And knowing that he went to Yale and he has an improv background, he really did probably put in some work in this. And that explains why he was able to get a lot of the faces he was able to get in this. And if we look up the other names that we don't know, I'm sure that they have improv background. We've given you guys our ratings. We've given you guys our final thoughts. The total score on this movie is a 2. The total score on this is a 2. But that's a 2 out of 30, just to be clear. Excuse me, not a 2. That's 6 out of 30. So that's a 2 out of 10. But we appreciate you guys for hanging out here. We appreciate you guys for listening, tuning in. If anybody who's involved in anything that we ever review hears or sees our reviews, we appreciate you guys for also hanging out and tuning in, because just as much as you put into trying to entertain us, we put into trying to understand what you gave us. And sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. Not everybody can get a ultra high score like, you know, Anything Everywhere. I can't even remember the name of it, but that was a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can't get one of those. But guess what? This also didn't get an Empty Man score or a Legion score. So when you look at our show and you look at what we do, you actually fell right into the midst of everything. You're successful because it's not a negative score. With that being said, we appreciate you guys for hanging out here at the Screen Time Continuum, listening to our banter, our rants, and our private thoughts that we have no problem saying out loud, because who we scared of other than, our own opinions occasionally.
Me.
But yeah, man, we appreciate you guys
Warm
for hanging out.
Testament now.
And for the Screen Time Continuum, my name is Keelan.
I'm Nick.
And I might.
We appreciate you guys. And next time you have an American Society of anything,
Don't.
I don't know.
Just don't.
Just don't.